Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jill Vampola, and I am the UCSD Training Grant Analyst for the campus. And today we're going to be talking about RPPR publications and the MyNCBI process and the MyBibliography process. So let's do a quick recap from last week. Last week, we talked about the whole RPPR module in regards to training grants. We went through each and every step here, went through the cover page, accomplishments, and etc. And then today we're really focused on the products, which is our publications. And so this is kind of a unique process. And so I thought it would be good for everyone to be able to go through this together. Next week, I'm hoping to do just troubleshooting for the RPPRs, not necessarily publications, but anything that you're having issue with, the training diversity report, table 8, anything, because I know a lot of RPPRs are coming due on February 1st and also March 1st. So like I said, last week, we went ahead and edited the RPPR. We added in the information that as an admin we needed to do. And then we also gave a checklist to our PI with all of their responsibilities and the things that they needed to do for the RPPR. So let me know if you need those resources and I can post those again to the website. So let's continue. So today's objective is to be able to learn how to enter the trainee publications into MyNCBI or the MyBibliography. The MyBibliography is a module within, or it's a system within MyNCBI for the training grant. So they appear in the RPPR module. So all your publications that are associated to be reported during this training period need to be assigned through the MyBibliography system so they appear in the RPPR module. You don't add publications right in the RPPR module. It's a bit confusing. I don't know why NIH has to make things so complicated, but they do. So the one thing you have to learn, and there's some history and some historical stuff here that I want to talk about because you really need to understand the big picture of publications, and that NIH has a public access policy. So it requires that any publications that we were funded from research dollars, basically from the NIH, they must be available to the public for free within 12 months in PubMed Central. So this is important to understand that we're, all the publications we're talking about today are NIH funded, right? So because they're being attached in the RPPR. So it's important that you adhere to this policy because it can get them in PubMed Central within 12 months. So the one thing to remember here is if you don't comply with the public access policy, you're not going to receive any future funding. So I do want to specify here that you can submit your RPPR, your progress report, to the NIH with non-compliant publications. However, if you don't fix them, you're not going to get future funding. So usually I'll try to go through and troubleshoot what kind of issues you could have. It's a quirky system. So hopefully this PowerPoint today, this training will be like a guidance to you and be able to steer you in the right direction when it comes to troubleshooting. So what is MyNCBI? It is a system that houses MyBibliography, and you put your publications in there into like a collection or a bibliography, and then it's transmitted and attached to the RPPR. And like I said earlier, it's not possible to manually add publications into the products module C1. You have to create this MyBibliography and then it attaches to the RPPR. So MyNCBI, long name here, National Center for Biotechnology Information. It basically manages peer-reviewed article compliance per what we would call NIPAP, which is NIH Public Access Policy. So it's just all about compliance, right? So I'll keep saying this over and over again, but it's important to understand that the citations have to be in my NCBI, my bibliography, to ensure that they become associated with future annual progress reports. So how is my bibliography populated? The most common method is it draws from PubMed. So you're putting in the PMID and attaching it that way, or you could be manually entering a publication or a bulk upload. Like if you're using like OneNote or some sort of Mendeley, you can bulk upload publications into my bibliography. So I'm a very visual person, so I like to see the big picture here. And so I thought this might help you. But basically, we're all starting here off in the commons, right? We put in our credentials for the commons, and we access the RPPR. The RPPR gets transmitted to the NIH, so we can get our research dollars, right? And then that comes back to us. But we also have to adhere to the public access policy. And so this, remember, we just talked about the MyNCBI module is all about compliance. So this monitors your compliance. And this, in the meantime, is speaking to PubMed Central. And so you need to put in the publications in PubMed Central, and this will check for compliance. So there's different ways to get your publications in PubMed Central. There's 4 methods, and we'll go through each one. And so it's kind of a complicated, confusing system, because you don't know necessarily, when you're coming into this as an admin perspective, what method that the author used. And so sometimes these authors, you may not be familiar with them because they're trainees on your training grant, and they may have mentors in other departments. Maybe your PD, PI isn't even a co-author on the publication. So it may just be the trainee and their mentor. So it gets kind of confusing sometimes. So we'll try to take it step by step here. So, but the thing to remember here is the RPPR. We are submitting that to the NIH to getting our dollars. We have to adhere by the public access policy, which manages your compliance for your publications and connects to the PubMed Central database. So logging in, I found this to be a funny process. As we all know, ERA Commons can be difficult sometimes and very finicky. And I find it the same thing with MyNCBI. So this morning, I went in and I linked my ERA Commons account. And I kept trying to log in this morning with my MyNCBI account, and it wouldn't let me. And then I finally put the 2 and 2 together. I have to use my ERA Commons account. So you can see here, it says, when I went into the account settings, when I actually finally did get logged in, I went to the account settings of MyNCBI, and it says you must log in using a third-party account. It says this username and password is retired. So that's why I could not get logged in. Now I know, like, a lot of us have those automatic fill-in passwords or username and passwords on our web browsers, and so that's what kept happening. It kept popping in with this, and it won't let me use my retired password. I have to use a linked account. So to link accounts, you have to go into your account settings, and I have my ERA Commons account and also my ORCID account linked in here. So I can either use one of these 2 options to log in. So something else to think about is the delegation. So if your PI wants to delegate to you to go ahead and do this for him, he could go ahead and add a delegate and add their email address, and then you receive a little email and do your business there. So this delegation process is completely separate than ERA Commons delegation process. So if they want to do delegations of their publication and basically their my bibliography, they would have to do that here. So again, Lots of extra bureaucracy, right? So let's say I logged in and I go to my dashboard, and this is what my dashboard basically looks at. And basically the one thing you're going to be doing here is looking at the My Bibliography. And you might also be looking at your collections because you might do other citations there too. But for generally speaking, this is where you do a bulk of your business. So I'm going to go ahead and in here and manage my bibliography. So this is the next dashboard that we come to, My Bibliography. So for training purposes, and since I am not a published person, I only have a couple publications here, and these are not my publications, obviously, but they are those that PIs here that I just grabbed as examples. So and you can see here, this is the compliance green, you're good to go, question mark. Hold on one second. So there's different ways to create a bibliography. And the most common way is to add citations from PubMed. And there's two different ways to do that. So I'm going to go through each way. So, or I should say, there's two ways from PubMed, but you can, again, I think I also said you can add from a file from your desktop, or you can add manually. So one thing I wanted to point out here is when you're adding in a PubMed citation from My Bibliography via this module, in this screen, you just go ahead and hit from PubMed, enter the PMID, and then search PubMed, and it would come up. So there's, and then you say citation added directly. There's also another way, if you're actually in PubMed, which is a different website, and you pull up one of your papers, you can also click here, My Bibliography, and if you're signed in, it can be added that way as well. This is the manual way. Hopefully you don't have to do that. But if you had to, this is the way you could do that. So one thing I wanted to point out here now is we also have, once we add in the publication, we have to manage the award and go ahead and attach the grant number to the publication. And then one thing here is the compliance report. So if you received what we call a PRAM, which is after the fact, if you submit your RPPR with non-compliant publications, you have to complete a PDF. You have to submit a compliance report to NIH. And so this is where you would do it. And I also want to point out up top here, it says share your bibliography with this URL. I think a lot of you, probably most of you, have all seen a biosketch, an NIH biosketch, and wonder where that URL at the very bottom of the biosketch comes from. And this is where it comes from. So if you ever need to come in and grab that. So I'm going to go ahead and here and manage my award. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this award, and I'm going to attach an NIH award to it. So you can see here, these are other awards that I've attached in the past, but because I don't have any awards, it says nothing comes up here. So I would have to go in and search and add another award for my PI, or whoever I'm doing this for. Okay, so let's recap. We went into MyNCBI, we went to My Bibliography, and we added in a trainee publication, and then we also attached the grant award number to it. Now I have to go back to the RPPR module to see it appear. So here we are, but we're assuming that the RPPR has been initiated, and we're just going in there to hit edit. And then we're going to go to products. So now you can see here on the right, it says expand collapse. And you'll see here section C1, and there's 3 accordions basically here. So basically the first main question is, were there any publications accepted in the last budget period that you're reporting on. And hopefully you're going to be saying yes. If you say no, obviously this is all not applicable, but you're saying yes. The first one is going to say all publications that are associated with this MyNCBI and with this project in MyNCBI. So these are ones that are associated. This next one, next accordion drop down, because they all look the same, but just slightly different. It's good. These are publications that are going to be listed, but are not associated with that project. And then the last one is publications that were previously reported in prior years. So the module looks similar because there's these three different lists, but one is all for your associated, you're not associated, and then you're previously reported. So clicking down on that accordion, and we see here, we're looking at all the ones that are associated with your RPPR. And so that is your default there, because you want them to be associated. If for some reason there's one publication in here that shouldn't be, you just go ahead and unclick that and save. So then it also, remember MyNCBI is all about compliance. So it's looking to see if this is compliant. So luckily for these two, these are compliant. But remember, if you log in and you look in here and I go, oh, where's my publication? And it's not there. Basically, you have to go back to the MyNCBI module and add it and also attach the grant number. So remember, your compliance is drawn from MyNCBI. So if these publications came up non-compliant, you can't fix them here. You have to go back to MyNCBI. So let's talk a little bit about compliance, because now we're going to go back to MyNCBI. I don't know, kind of gives you a headache, huh? So this is, I wanted to also point out something with compliance and the PMID number. So some people have always wondered, like, what's the difference between a PMID number and a PMCID number? So when you put things initially into PubMed, you get a PMID number. But once it gets accepted into PubMed Central, which is your end game here, it adds that C. So I've highlighted here C for compliance. So what's the difference between the two? This is the NIPAP, the public access policy. It is compliant. So you always want to have that C in there. Okay, so let's go back to my bibliography and look at my compliance. Okay, so we have the compliance here, and you can see the check marks are for those that are compliant, and then they have one with a question mark up here. So the green is obviously what we're going for. So these are compliant. And then you can see here the ones in blue are recently submitted through NIMS, and so it's in process. Now, if it doesn't have to obey, I guess, by the public access policy, it will be kind of like it's a pink gray. And so basically, if it's prior to 2008 or it didn't use NIH funding, then it doesn't have to be, it's not part of the public access policy. So it's exempted. So the two big ones here are the bottom, the red ones here. So you can see here, these are the non-compliant publications because it's a citation that is not in PubMed Central or the NIMS system. So you're going to have to go ahead and add either the NIMS number in and show that it's in process. Or it could be that it's not compliant because there's no award assigned to it. So again, you'd have to go back to your MyNCBI, which we're in right now, right, and add the award. So big higher level things to remember. The grantee is always responsible for compliance, which is the PI. As we all know, it can take weeks to get these things to update and become compliant. So you have to be a bit what's the word, patient. So, and just as another reminder, I know I keep repeating myself, but you can still submit your RPPR. So it's on time with non-compliant publications, but they're not going to issue the new award until all the publications are compliant. So you'll have to respond to that PRAM. Okay, so so here how it says here, it's not defined, or you're going to have to go in and hit edit status. So I want you to know what that looks like. So it's going to say here, did NIH support this citation? Well, yeah. So you're going to hit yes, and then it's going to bring you up to this little wizard. And remember what I talked about earlier, there's 4 different ways to submit your journal, your paper, into the NIM system. So it's going to ask you, we do not have a record of the citation. Please choose from the following. Begin the submission process in NIMS. Or you can say, I already started that. And then you can put the NIMS number here. Or one of the publication submission methods is that the publisher automatically submits. So you could maybe click that, or it doesn't apply to the policy. So you're going to have to, this is your troubleshooting screen, and you're going to have to determine based on information that you have, or contacting the PI, usually contacting the trainee or the main author on that paper and saying, do you have a NIMS number? Did you submit this in the NIMS system? Maybe they haven't. Maybe it's stalled in the system. So you need to go ahead and get the NIMS number from them. Okay, so let's go to the new screen. So these are the PubMed submission methods. And so you have obviously A, B, C, or D. And the first method would be the journal would deposit the publication, the published version, basically to PMC, which is here, right? That would be the easiest for everybody, but not all journals do that. So I don't know the exact percent, but it's not a large amount. So for method B, the author arranges to have the journal deposit the published version of the specific NIH-funded article to PMC. So basically it comes down to the author is responsible to confirm the deposit in PMC. There's that method. Or there's method C, which I think is the most popular, which is the author submits, or the delegate submits the peer-reviewed manuscript to the NIM system, and then the NIM system sends an email asking the author to approve and submits materials for processing. So this, we know, it relies on someone responding to an email, which can a lot of times can be the problem. So if you may not be familiar with the main author, or the person that submitted it into NIM, so tracking this person down and then making sure that they review the formatted PDF, and then it gets submitted or approved. The manuscript gets approved and then submitted to PMC. Or option D, which is the journal publisher submits the final peer-reviewed article, journal, publication, whatever you want to call it, to the NIM system. And then again, the NIM system sends an email asking for approval. So, and then the author has to go in and approve it. And then it gets sent to PMC, PubMed Central, and then it's considered compliant. So see how there's 4 different ways, all depends on the type of journal that you are dealing with. So, and everyone's going to be different. And I don't know, I wish I knew the statistics, but I think this is probably the most popular, C. So it's going to require you to troubleshoot and figure out who was actually submitting to the NIM system. And that could be you, actually, right? So here's just a high-level look at the NIM system. And basically, you go ahead and you deposit your publication. It goes in for initial approval. it goes to that conversion, and the NIHMS conversion, it deposits to the PMC ready documents and notifies the reviewer via email. Then it goes in for final approval, and the reviewer is going to need to go ahead and see if there's any corrections, things like that need to be approved. And then your PMC ID is assigned finally after your person, whoever, goes in and approves it. Then it gets the PMC ID, and then it's going to show up in your PubMed Central with the PMC ID number, not necessarily the PMID number. So this is what the NIM system looks like. So you can see here, if I logged in, it could say here, okay, you have one publication that needs your attention. There's this many in process, and there's this many stalled, and this many that are now available in PubMed Central. So, as we know, publications, an author or a PI can do, many publications per year. So you can be working on multiple publications at one time. So let's go through troubleshooting a little bit. So my bibliography does not have the grant information attached to the citation. How do I know if an article is grant funded? So the best way I like to do is I like to go into the PubMed website, and you can check the full text of the PDF under acknowledgements, and it will say sometimes multiple NIH grants. So then since you're already in PubMed, you can see right there who the authors are, and you might be familiar with that author or not, but you're going to have to get in touch with them and sometimes help them to start the NIMS process if they haven't already started it. Hopefully they've started it and they can say, oh, yep, here's the NIMS number. You go ahead and pop that in, and then it's going to be in process. It's going to show up blue. And then eventually, once it's accepted, it would be green and show up with your PMC ID number. So I referred to earlier, if you can submit your RPPR with non-compliant publications to the NIH, but the NIH is going to automatically come back and it's going to assign you what they call a PRAM. It's a progress report, additional materials. And so an auto email is sent to the PI with a CC to the SO and the AO. So maybe not you, but hopefully your PI will send you this and say, hey, we have a non-compliant publication. And so you'll go into, we're back in ERA Commons, go into ERA Commons and click the public access PRAM, and you'll have to go ahead and respond. So you'll have to basically get that publication in compliance, little troubleshooting, and to get them blue or green. And then you're going to have to create that PDF report. So remember when I showed you back in MyNCBI, on the left-hand side drop down, says you can create a PDF report. So that's where you would do that. And then you would go ahead and attach it into the module. So a lot of times the PI can submit this PRAM back to the NIH if they have RPPR authority. If they don't, and you want them to have RPPR authority, have them contact your SPO office. At UCSD, it's Elizabeth Tang, and she can give them RPPR authority. Or if the PI cannot do that, then you can have the SO submit to NIH. So this is what that PRAM looks like. You would add in your upload here of your PDF compliance. And so then you go ahead and either hit route to another reviewer or hit submit. So that's about all I have for today. I will have this training session recorded and put on the website as usual. And then for next week, I thought we would just do troubleshooting and if anybody has any questions, doesn't necessarily mean it's all publications, but it's it's just anything RPPR related. We're focusing on. Of course, with office hours, you can show up with any question, but I think the biggest focus right now is the publications. I mean, the RPPRs. So next Thursday is February 1st. So I know some of you have the deadline before that. I mean, yeah, that's the deadline, but you may have to be submitting, before February 1st. So, and I know a lot of them are due March 1st as well, but, contact me during the week if you are having any issues, getting your publications compliant, because I know it's kind of a difficult thing. And it's a little bit more complicated because your PI may not be an author on that publication, right? It may be just your trainee and their mentor. So it gets a little convoluted, but hopefully, together we can all figure it out. So I will be here, let's see, next week, February 1st and February 8th. And then I have on here, then the next 3 weeks I will be out of town. So I'm hoping for someone to cover the office hours. But I'll be out of town February 15th, 22nd, and 29th. But I'm hoping to get someone to cover those office hours. Anyway, thank you so much. And let me know if you have any further questions.